here are the revenues from the gate. I'm gonna turn it over to Josh so he can actually kind of, does anybody have any questions on the annual cost? If you do, let me know.
Kind of two different, not on annual costs, but, and these are things I had no idea until I started reading this week, and so if you say, I don't know, that's fine too, but, one thing I read, so with the hardness of the field, the impact, one thing I read was that if there's dirt intrusion, it can turn turf fields really, really hard. And I mean, the way it blows around here in the spring, is that a problem? Have you read anything about that?
I don't know.
Okay.
But what I can tell you, if the wind becomes a problem, we've got our perimeter of the football field is fenced in. We can put in those slats.
Okay.
That will reduce the amount of wind that hits the football field.
And then another thing, and one of the comments I got from, I've had more feedback about this project than anything else in the last year. But one of the...
It's a big one.
It is. One of the comments actually from a kid who plays football is, I'll give you the quote, it's, practice would suck so bad in the summer. And so I was reading, what about it? He was talking about the heat. It was what he was talking about. And I was reading, you have to water these fields if kids are going to be practicing on them when it's hot. So what do we need to do to be able to water that field? Obviously, you're not going to put a sprinkler system in the field, right?
Correct. If we ever had to run a water system, Boise State doesn't water their fields. Homedale doesn't water their fields, and they still practice. Emmett, you're talking to them, they don't have anything installed. But if we ever needed to, we could purchase a big gun, and I don't know if anybody knows what that is. It's just a big sprinkler, basically on a wheel line. You just ring it out, and you just reel it in as it's pumping water through there if we had to.
Okay.
Not having to install a sprinkler system.
But the other schools aren't doing it around here, so, okay.
Right.
And the other thing I was going to mention is the OSAA has a heat index, right? And so I get an alert, or Coach Sanchez or our soccer coaches, whoever it is, gets an alert if it's too high and we actually can't practice that day. The other thing, so either it's indoors. The other thing, we would still have the option of practicing grass, right? So even if the turf, because there's guidelines for the heat index on synthetic fields, if it's too high, then we move them either to an alternate location or indoors if we have to. So, good question.
But one thing I read on that, one of the OSAA recommendations was if it gets over 90 degrees on turf, we recommend you not practice for longer than 5 hours. That child abuse practicing for 5 hours.
Yeah, so yeah, even on grass fields, we still have to monitor that and adhere to those same guidelines. So,
Cool.
Good question.
And the idea here is to use it. It's there. I mean, if we use it like we're supposed to, you're going to get 12 years out of it. I mean, you got it from 6 to 7, use it. We got it from 7 to 8, use it. 8 to 9, if Mr. Deanna can schedule that on there, that's what it's for. Our current football field, stay off of it because the water starts at 6 p.m. and it doesn't turn off until 4 a.m. So now I'll turn it over to Mr. Deanna to kind of go through maybe some.
Yeah, I'll start with some of these letters, because one of the questions I received last week was, did I get feedback or were my coaches aware, kind of what the community or public knowledge was of this situation. So I would actually, so the one with your board agenda on it is actually the one I'm going to be referencing, and I'm actually going to work backwards here a little bit. So on the very back, there is a nice Nissa High School Athletic Director plan. So this was actually something I submitted 2 years ago when I interviewed for the job. Within that plan, and it's been reviewed by admin, both in my building and district level, and even Mr. Godin himself, as I was referencing old emails. And it was actually shared with one of your former board members as well, who had heard about this vision and plan and was interested, so I sent him a copy. And so in it, if you look at the second to last page, it says, in phase 2 of my 3 to 5 year plan was to evaluate facilities and upgrades Okay, and this was researching cost, budget, and plan for potential facilities. And one of those, as you can see, is the turf field in Bulldog Stadium. This was shared with my coaches in my very first coaches meeting on August 17, 2023, in which a majority of my assistants and head coaches, my district admin were there, and my building admin was there, and everybody saw, reviewed, and heard of this plan. Now at that time, I only had one coach approach me about having a concern about injuries that turf that can occur on turf. Excuse me. Since then, I'll be honest with you, I had not had a complaint. I had not had even a negative opinion regarding the turf until Tuesday morning after our latest board meeting, once our proposal bid did not get approved. So my coaches were aware of this. So the first year in 2023, we played all of our soccer games out in the boonies, is what I like to call it, all the way out there, right? And all but one were on the football field. This past year, it worked out with the middle school football schedule, with the high school JV and varsity schedule. I got to play majority, or we got to play a majority of the games in the stadium. Not all, but most. And with that, we got a charge, and it wasn't great, and it was a new thing for a lot of people. But I think the more and more we can do it, the more and more it's available, and there's knowledge out there in our community, I think we can actually offset a lot of those costs. So if you look in the packet, and again, sorry, I'm working backwards. We shared with you our gate revenue, our concessions revenue, and then I actually attached our fees for officials for the last 2 years. And if you look at the gate revenue and the concessions revenue, we made enough to at least pay off some of those officials. Not a lot, but at least compared to 2023, where we did majority games out in the boonies, like I said earlier, we're losing money on that, right? And not even enough to offset some of the officials' costs. Now, I also shared with you officials' fee schedule, and that's going to increase gradually from year to year, and that's for every sport. And Crystal knows, and I've apologized to her, we increased my professional services that pays my officials this year, and I'm going to be over budget again. Officials are costing us a lot of money. So any way we can help offset that by having more games that we can charge and receive a gate fee, that would be awesome. Jesse also referenced streaming games. So those of you that are aware, we used NFHS during COVID. We transitioned to Huddle. Since we've transitioned, Huddle's been free. NFHS used to have to pay a monthly, yearly, seasonal subscription. Huddle is not very cheap, and it's also a coach's tool. It's not only just a streaming, we use it for coaching, it's a tool. Our players use it, it's a recruiting tool as well. They have increased the price. So when we're talking about Huddle and streaming options and all those things I just mentioned, well, if we're playing out in the boonies, there's no internet access, nothing, I can't even stream a game. What that does with Huddle, if we were to play in the stadium, we have to help offset that Huddle payments balance off a little bit too, okay? Because it's increasing. So these are all ways that, hey, if we're using the stadium a little bit more and charging out-of-district people that are tuning in to watch those games, right? Because a lot of our soccer teams that play in our league are actually 4 or 5 hours away. That's a lot of travel. Well, let's make some money from those people that are tuning in and not making the trip and watching. Whether we're either going to get them at the concessions, the gate if they come, or we got to get them streaming if they're watching our service, right? But if we're playing on the boonies, again, we can't do that. So those are just a few of the items that, from the athletic standpoint, that I'm looking at, because at this point, you know, those are things that we're not getting money back for, or at least helping pay off some of those debts that we have. So letters, okay? Some of these are from media members. Some of them are John Bray's, Eastern Oregon Sports, who's also on our committee for the turf project. One of them is from Mid-Major Media that covers 1A through 4A schools statewide. And he's paid attention to NISA athletics from all levels and he shared some of his thoughts from a statewide perspective. John shared his from, hey, this can provide an opportunity for some teams regionally. Let's say Adrian and Jordan Valley need a place to play for state football. Well, they can play it here instead of going all the way to Bend, right? And let's receive some of that profit or exposure, whatever we want to look for, and host that game here. A couple other ones that we have, Monk Family Dental, and you guys can obviously read this, and this was shared with you earlier, but I'm just going to hit on a couple bullet points on a few of them. Mr. Monk says the proposed turf field will serve as a versatile multi-sport facility, accommodating football, soccer, track and field, which we haven't even mentioned or included. The all-season surface will allow our student athletes to practice and compete in a safe, consistent environment, regardless of weather conditions. So again, reiterating something we've said again and again tonight. Jim Merritt, City of Nissa. Okay, Influx will generate economic growth for local businesses and strengthening our economy, not only for Nissa School District, but socially for our town. Chamber, Tony Maxwell, who's here. How many times do we use the stadium or the football field area for Thunder Egg Days, Bubble Ball, the fireworks show? Like, that is another thing that, hey, we're going to generate people and get on our facility, and they're going to be proud and see that turf field and see our amazing facility. So, Tony Maxwell shared that. Alex Wilson, who's been in AD for 3 years, has his athletic admin license, is a football coach as well, shared his thoughts, his perspective as an AD, former AD, and also talked about, you know, how grass fields can also have its own cause injuries and own issues. Jesse hit on that a little while ago. And it's a turf field isn't just about convenience, right? He also mentioned its investment in our programs, our players, and our community. And I thought that was well said. Coach Sanchez, our head football coach, shared a letter going back to an earlier conversation, and Jeremiah Martinez, who's our soccer coach as well. Guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I made that move to move more games to Bulldog Stadium, I was planting that seed, and there was a lot of people upset. And I'll be honest with you, the complaints that I get about doing this project, it really comes down to people not wanting soccer in our community. So when we say we didn't get community input, I think our community made that decision 6-7 years ago when we included soccer. And so, like I said the other day, the discussion isn't about turf or no turf. Okay, the discussion is there's people that are upset that we still have soccer and don't want to treat it as equal as some of the other programs we have. So I think that's the real discussion. That's some of the negative feedback I've received. And again, there's comments in there from our coaches, students, and then there was some in there that said they don't support it. Now, I did ask them to leave a reason why. One of them was burns or heat in the summer. One student was concerned about ACL injuries. Some of the students just said, it doesn't impact me because I don't play either sport, so I really don't care. I'm going to say no because it doesn't benefit me. And that's fair. So, you know, we at least have that. And like I said, I think one of the questions I received in email and even last week was, how does this benefit kids? My question to you guys is, how does it not benefit our kids? So, with that, I'll take any questions, open any discussion, and go from there.
Justin, I do want to mention one thing on that cost. You know, the time we spend on that football field will now allow us to actually work on different projects, for staff members to work on different projects throughout campus.
Swear.
Other thing, sorry, I know that Ms. Ramos here had a phone call with a former athlete here who plays in the NFL today. Could you share that with us a little bit?
Well, I decided to contact John Gates, and he contacted his dad and had his dad call me. And I just had two specific questions. I didn't say I was pro or con against it, and I just asked about injuries. And Gino also contacted, he told me the guy's name, but I can't remember, the athletic director in Lebanon where he used to work, because I think they have a turf in Lebanon. he said the pros far outweigh the cons. The only two cons that the athletic director and Johnny both said were, you have to plan on the replacement cost in 15 years. And when there's installation, they go over the track, all that heavy machinery. And, but the guy in Emmett told us that they built like a bridge or something so that they didn't hurt the track. And then I specifically asked him about injuries, and I said one of our board members is concerned about cancer, that her cancer can get caused from this, and he said you have a far greater chance of getting cancer from the pesticides and the fertilizer on the field than you do for the artificial turf. He said there's no professional football player, and they spend a lot more time on the turf than high school kids do, ever getting cancer. And they said injuries in high school students aren't any more than they would be on grass. That's what professional football player and also Gene Allen, after talking to another person from Lebanon.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And actually, Mr. Grodding, I'd like to have him say a couple things. He has a letter in here as well, but he has experience, obviously, in Beaverton doing that, but also, I mean, just looking at the equity of access to our sports, and Josh kind of hit it on it, right? Like, this would make it equitable for all of our programs to have access to a proper stadium. And so anyway, so Mr. Grodding.
Thank you. It's good to be back here. Well, I hope the board got my letter too. You have an amazing staff when it snows, and it takes care of kids and feeds them, transports them, maintains our building, so thank you. So I've been a superintendent for 27 years. I've been in 4 different districts. 2 of the districts had natural turf, and then 2 of the last 2 districts I've been in had artificial turf, and one of the school districts was quite large with every high school and a lot of the middle schools having artificial turfs. What I can tell you is the initial cost scares boards up front. It is a huge investment when you see that. And then I think you need to look at, just like that was well presented, about every 10 to 15 years, you're going to be replacing that turf. And it's going to be somewhere, I believe, between $300,000 and $600,000. I think another thing that I think Director Melendez did a good job of, I said, when you present these figures, make sure that you're not lowballing it. So, oh, you said it was going to cost this, and now it costs this. I said, go ahead, add a little bit for inflation in there, and I think he did a great job of that. I think what I would want the board to come away with the most is that this is not only just doing something for athletics. It really is opening up another classroom for the school district, and not just a PE classroom. It could be your math class, a physics classroom. It could be a science classroom. It can be an elementary classroom. So it really, if it's scheduled correctly, it really is another living classroom that is open K through 12. And being in Beaverton is very political there. So whenever we put in turf fields, we really had to look at the medical and the health aspects of it. And we did quite extensive studies in looking at the carcinogenics that are in the turf and whatnot. And we could find and did not find any conclusive studies that basically said that it was adding any additional incentives that were going to be cancer to students. We just didn't find that. We looked at them. Yes, some of those products, some of their byproducts, but you would have to be exposed to them so much for that to happen that it wouldn't. So I don't want to talk about the priorities of the district to the board, but that's the one I'm not here to do. But what I will tell you is the amount of usage. There was a study done in 2024 by Montgomery Schools, a really, really big school district, and it talks about the number of hours that students were able to participate on a natural grass field versus participating on some sort of artificial synthetic field. It almost triples the amount of usage that you can get out of that space versus a grass field. And then it even broke it down by dollars per hour. And so it definitely decreased the dollars per hour that you were gonna pay for that. So, I think the other thing that, you have to look at too, and Jesse, vaguely touched on it, it's going to open, him and his maintenance crew, and sometimes that's a custodial crew up, to do other things that need to be maintained in the district versus going out and making sure that the field's lined or whatever. The other thing that we really found out, when you either come in from a PE class from using the field, an all-grass field, or the football players coming in from an all-grass field, they are tracking all this mud into the buildings, and whether they go into the locker rooms, the PE rooms, and or eventually come into the school. Well, I know a lot of our schools have carpet, so that's getting put in there. So there's a lot of things that you don't see, that you don't measure, that cost-wise, that it's not there. But I know it is a huge investment, upfront investment. You'll do it, but I would say it really brings pride to a district. And here's what's sad: most districts can't do anything like this unless they go out for a bond. So, and or they have a lot of money. So, throughout Oregon and even throughout the United States, who gets those great artificial turf fields? Rich districts. And so this is a lower socioeconomic district, and to have an artificial turf field here would, I think, mean so much to the community. It would be a sense of pride, and I think one of the things when you come into NISA, when I came in here in 2000, the one thing I did notice was you guys have excellent schools. Your facilities are well kept, and you know the schools are the heartbeat. So I can't say enough about it, but it is a big investment. But I think it would be a worthwhile investment and appreciated by all students in the community. So.
You talked to Peter Weber today, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I did call Peter Weber. Peter Weber is the executive director of the OSAA, and he basically said everybody's putting in, if they can afford it, they're putting in artificial fields every day. Any new high school that's being built, it's always artificial turf, and even so many of the ones that have natural grass fields, they're switching over if they can afford it. And a lot of the districts that are going out for bonds, it's one of the first things they'll try to put in their bond is to be able to fund that. But you know, you're looking at $1 million plus price tag. Plus, I think you need to really look at the ongoing cost of that and make sure that it's well maintained. And even if you get an artificial field, it needs to be well maintained. Just like a lot of folks have the natural grass, and natural grass fields aren't well maintained because number one, you can't work on them all year round. And regardless if it's natural grass or artificial, those need to be well maintained. And we did have one field, Dustin, you mentioned one of our fields was near a field, and the wind would blow and dust would blow, and we had those tests done all the time, and you do have to go in and replace some of the infill sometimes and make sure. The other thing, if you do decide to vote on this, the person that's going to have the most work now is going to be that poor athletic director. Because everybody's going to want to use this field. My son just they put in a new one 4 years ago at Sutherland. If somebody wants to use their field, they charge $1,000 a day for the use of that field. And he said, we have to turn people away, and it's whether it's the 1A, the 2A, or people just wanting an artificial turf to play their youth games on or whatnot. He said, but your athletic director, his job will increase like fivefold because everybody will want to use that, as well as the teachers at the elementary school, the middle school. I believe that NISA used to have a marching band, and one of the reasons that it went away was because they really didn't have very much place to practice. So that's a big thing with the arts. Sometimes marching bands, if you do have marching bands, having that artificial field to be able to play on. So there's lots of opportunities that come with it, but it does have a price tag. Any questions?
Are you ready for 5 times the job?
So he did bring, so that was a question Pat asked me the other day too. So I did make a mock schedule, and I was gonna mention this a little while ago, in that packet that you guys are just going through. And that's currently on the programs and youth programs we have right now. I try to make it as realistic on the days and times that the kids currently use, whether it's youth or whether it's our JV football, middle school football. Obviously, we would still need to utilize those other grass fields. One other thing that Mr. Gotti mentioned was how Sutherland charges a fee. And that's something Ryan and I have talked about before. The study that Don also referenced did have a scale in there that we can look over and tweak and modify, and maybe that's a way, we save that on the side and save it for the next time we have to pay for the new turf in 12, 15 years. So those are all things we've considered.
Do we know what the cost is to replace infiltration?
But what I can tell you, Dustin, is my son said basically what they do every year. So they chose not to buy all the equipment. They chose to hire a company to come in once a year that goes over the field, they test it, the infill and everything. And he said that's about $5,000 a year for that annual cost. And the other thing that he said, you have to have some really great rules in place. He says the worst thing on an artificial turf field are sunflower seeds and artificial sports drinks. Water is great, but like Gatorade, Powerade, any of the things that are not water, because it goes down, gets in the fibers, and it's really hard. So having a good set of rules, usage, and what you can't have on the field and what you can't have off the field. But for that cost, it was about $5,000 a year. They have them come in, and once a year they'll have them come in and test the infield, do the infield, fluff it up, and he said it doesn't take them, it takes them about a day, but it's a $5,000 bill.
So Jesse, if we have them come test the field every year, make sure it's whatever, playable for the kids, that's our cost to have them come test it.
Correct, if we actually went with that.
So it's not
They
included.
we can include it. We can include it in the price, in the project, total dollars. If we don't want to go that way, I do know that some of the companies provide training. If we were to go out there and purchase a piece of equipment, I would be trained, another staff member would be trained, and we'd be able to do that ourselves in-house.
And test it.
Correct. However, it is recommended that you get a third-party tester, because if I go out there and I test it, I'm going to say it's going to pass. It has to be a third-party tester. But as far as maintaining the field, depending on whether we get an attachment or also yard it out.
Any other questions?
I could ask for half an hour.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these are questions items that we need to have brought out, because we need to be thorough in this.
So a lot of this comes from an email from a student. I specifically asked a student, what's the student body think about this? And that student asked a lot of people. I'm really, really impressed by the work that they put into the email that they sent me. And then I've had a few parents call me, I've had a couple of teachers get a hold of me. One of the concerns the student had was, is it going to be a financial burden on students' families to have to buy different cleats? And my understanding is you don't have to have different cleats, but some schools have policies that you need turf-specific cleats. So are we going to be able to make it a policy that they can use their existing cleats? Because I don't want a financial burden on families that just, they can afford one set of cleats.
So that was a question I received, and I think the cleats they have, because when they go anywhere else, they're gonna play on grass fields, right? So it just makes sense to wear that same cleat, whether it's on turf.
I did talk to Jay Gomez about that, and he said with the new turf fields that there's no issue.
Right.
That's one of the things I wrote.
And he is in favor of it too, Rex.
I had two soccer players say they didn't want it, for two different reasons. One was turf burn, heat, and the other one had to do with where they would be practicing. They said, we'll still primarily be practicing on grass, and then the ball will roll different on turf. And I don't know, the coach seems to be pro the turf, even given the different play, so.
Well, I look at, and Jesse talked about this, it actually, what turf gets you in a lot of, I mean, it gives you a consistent playing field that bounces the same every time, you know, and so if you look at consistency, you want to actually practice on turf, because that will give you that bounce. And then so, but the problem is like, so when you practice out in our facility there, and if you play on grass, it is now, it could be longer, it could be shorter, there's different, I mean, and so actually it is, a lot of the tournaments and things like that, the preference is turf just because of the ball bounce and the way it rolls.
But, and I guess maybe,
So I think that'll fall on Josh. I mean, he could create a practice schedule from Monday through Friday where the soccer team goes from after school for 2 hours, and then the football rolls in and practices, because they'll be able to even practice under the lights.
and that's exactly what I'm going with. Is that something we can do? Because I didn't know there was a debate that some people didn't want soccer. I mean, I don't watch soccer. I don't have a bill to play soccer or any other sport. But it's the most popular sport in the world, and it's growing, and it's going to just become more and more popular here. And if we want this to really be equitable to soccer just as much as football, I think we need to be able to give them practice time on the turf.
Right, so that would need the kids, the parents, and the coaches to be flexible in practice times, right? Because everybody wants to be 4 to 6 and get out of there as soon as possible, as early as possible. And remember, they are students, right? So we want them home at a decent time. But it's just flexibility. And like I mentioned earlier, it could be football, it could be soccer. Well, they may be playing on grass, so they're probably better off practicing on grass for that week, right? And so it's just kind of dependent. One thing to mention is once you get to the semis or once you go anywhere across the state, you're playing on turf. So we'll actually have that advantage now where we can practice on turf, right? In other years, if our soccer football teams made it, we didn't have that turf field to practice on. We just went in there kind of blind, and it was new. So I wouldn't say every day, right? Because we got to include middle school and youth programs, right? And youth programs have to work around us, but I would say at least once or twice a week they're going to have that flexibility, right? That's dependent on them being able or willing to be flexible with their practice times, and that comes from parents, the student athletes, and coaches just being flexible. So,
And that'll open up opportunities for our youth program. Boys soccer play is going to practice on our turf field, so you guys have the boys practice field youth program, both sides.
Yes, and please remember that we do have female athletes who will be able to use that field also. I mean, flag football is becoming a big thing. Girls soccer, it's amazing.
I'll tell you the two big, the pro and con for me. The $1 million upfront cost, we've got it. You've budgeted for that. The district has done a phenomenal job saving. My Tech High has been really good. So the upfront cost doesn't concern me. It's $300,000 to $600,000 now to replace turf. In 12 years from now, it's going to be $6 to $1.2 million. I mean, it's just the way economics work, right? It's going to double every 12 years. It's going to double. But something Mr. Grodding said that I love is you get 3 times the use out of the field. And that's what it's supposed to be for, is the kids to use it. So it's the down the road cost that makes me cringe, but it's if it really gets utilized that much more and we can really make this fair so everybody can have time on it, it's a pretty big pro.
Makes your job huge, Josh.
yeah, Ryan and I will talk about that.
Yeah, he was just telling me the other day, he's like, I don't have enough to do, could you give me more? I said, Josh, can I ever? And I would look at is, we're gonna have a structure like we did our busing structure, busing replacement structure, that before we started, that we just essentially, like, we need a new bus, then we had to go to go to our reserve fund and do that, but then Crystal and I worked where we planned it out from 2018 to 2025 and saying, okay, we're getting this percentage every year, needs to go this, knowing that this is a cost, and we already have a special fund that is outside of it, is saying, okay, we're gonna build that. We know that people renting it, we're gonna have at least $5,000 in rent that goes there every year. We're gonna have this percentage go, and so we're gonna be building that cost, and so that'll continually grow. So when that 12 to 15 years comes up, it's already there, and we just spend it out. Like I said, like the buses, like we have a new bus, we have to spend $250 next year for it. We've already built that account up, and so we're gonna use that same mentality of it, is like this percentage here, that goes there, and then so it goes to that account. So it's not gonna be we need more money, guys. It's already built in, we're saved for it. So, because we know what's gonna happen.
So one of the other concerns was, specifically, one of the non-athlete students said, I can't find it. Anyway, they said they wanted to see the money be spent on, here we go, chemistry labs, but that's already part of your plan. So the question I have is there anything we're taking away from that we say we really should be spending that money elsewhere for education purposes?
So we know that the money, so the kind of virtual school money, right, we would put in facilities, saying we want that world-class facilities. This is part of it, has to go to the facilities. In there, we're putting in that $250,000 minimum to upgrade our chemistry labs for that, because that's feedback that we got. That's already built in there. And so if you look at our kind of phase plans, the maintenance plans for this one, all of those are in there. And so it's not gonna be extra cost that we're gonna be taking away from other learning. And so that's already part of it. So.
How does it affect track and field? That's another one that a track person brought up is, and I don't know what conversations they've had, but they said something about there's been rumors that districts might be held here next year. How do we maintain the wear and tear on a turf field if we've got 300 track and field participants and spectators all over the field? How do we protect that without limiting their experience?
So district track is supposed to be here next year, it is scheduled. And we try to model it as close as we can to the state track meet. So for parents and spectators, there's designated areas for each event, right? And so if that meant we had to limit some usage in the infield or the main field, then we can do that. And so that is one of the ways we can navigate that process. But again, if we're gonna have it, we might as well beat the crap out of it too, right? So that's how I answer that. But yes, for district track, we do have spectator viewing areas. So.
I look at it like kind of like our gym floor. It's that same thing, right? We don't let anybody, whenever they come, we say, hey, you got to treat it right. You have to do it this way. It's just, like these one-time events, it's not that big of a deal. It's this over time, when people are using it on the weekends, every night, those things, those compound up. But like districts, that's one big event. And usually people are pretty respectful during those things, and the youth athletics, those are okay. Like I said, it's just over time, like our gyms. So.
Last question, I promise.
I wouldn't promise that.
It's okay.
All right, unless somebody else brings something
Yeah.
up, but is there any way we can preserve the track to be used by the community while protecting the field? Just that seems to be an issue across other school districts that close those areas off. And I know we've got a plan for another track. It's not the same as a rubber track. People take pride in that their community has a nice rubber track that they can go use, they can walk on it. It's kind of a community thing that, yes, our priority is to the kids. That's been a nice public thing. So is there something we can do to put the field in but still let people use the track area?
I think it's important. The reason why we're limiting that use is to protect the investment that the board has and the community has. And that's a big issue, is protecting that investment. If it is, like, if the board says it's more important for us to leave that open, like, you gotta realize that 12 to 15 years is gonna start whittling down. And so, we can absolutely, that's the answer. Like, we're not gonna be the gatekeepers. Like, if you guys say we're more interested in that, then, again, there will be, we'll be coming to you in 7 to 8 years, be like, all right, there was a lot of abuse out there and those things that we couldn't limit. but we, you know, people were able to walk on. I mean, again, it is up to the board and what we want to, you know, protect the investment.
And that's what just happened at Homedale. They had it open, and now recently, year 5, they've made that change to close it off, so.
So we are going to install, around this area, it's gonna be a quarter mile. We're gonna lay down some, just like we did on the entry as you come in, a path so that we can walk around there. They'll be able to park at the elementary and just walk around here. We'll put some signs up there that says 1 mile is equal to 4 and 5 laps.
And it will be a paved,
And it would be a paved,
not rubberized, but it'll be paved.
And the city is going to
Oh,
pave that whole of the new park. They found the money to pave it.
well, the good part about it, it is shaded areas. There are shaded areas where now, I mean, you talk about that heat index on that track. Like in the middle of summer, you can't get out there and use it. That would actually allow more people to use it one time. And then we also, I mean, we have the Vince Perez kind of, you know, area around there that is set up. I mean, if you just want a natural path around, how far is that around?
I think it's a mile maybe?
Just shy of a mile. There, so you have those people that, you know, that if you do like kind of the more off-road, don't like kind of walking on paths or those things because they think damaging knees and stuff. We do have that facility. It's open all the time. And then we'll have that for people who want to just go around. And it is, and again, it's still kind of fenced off. It is a secure area because I know that, you know, for me, having my kids run out there, that's something that we come down the track all the time. We could do that and I still feel safe and so, but yeah. Are you sure? Yeah. And I do think, you know, and I hope that we've answered most of the questions that we received from the board. You know, and I looked up and doing a lot of research, and then Mr. Grotting brought this up about, you know, it was about, you know, the investigation on it causing cancer. It is the chemicals in the rubber causing cancer on that. And so, you know, we looked at a bunch of studies. The Washington State Department of Health actually came up and said, as those chemicals are prevalent in rubber, it's not at a level at which they said it causes cancer. They haven't found a direct relation to that. I also read one from Penn State. So I have a bunch of them here if you guys want to read them. From Penn State as well, and saying that, you know, there's actually a higher percentage of those chemicals in our fertilizers and our pesticides. And they said, actually, to be honest with you, skin cancer, the sun is going to be worse than anything that you're going to get out there. And so that was actually, it was really interesting reading that from the CDC and from all of those, is saying that as those chemicals are there, it actually, it's such a small percentage that unless you're like, I mean, they did say, you know, their recommendation is don't ingest a bunch of it, take showers, you know, like, and that was like, they, you know, take showers frequently, you know, those things. But, you know, so that's what they said. I know, that's going to be, but no, we wanted to make sure that we thoroughly looked at every aspect of this. And so we want to make sure you guys are armed with the most information as well. So really, any questions or anything that we can
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If in the next 12 to 14 or 10 to 12 years, would we potentially have to reseed or resod the football field in this time frame?
If we
If we kept the
If we kept the natural, that was my question.
Oh, I reseed it every spring, every fall. We put seed on there.
Was that cost in there breakdown?
That was not in there.
Okay. Yeah, because
So
I was just wondering if there was like another big cost in that.
$20,000 a bag.
Because I think that would make it more digestible for the people that have that concern about the cost, knowing that potentially in this time frame we would already have to spend a big chunk of money to.
To resod it. Yeah, to resod the whole thing. So.
I would also like to mention that that football field has not been upgraded in a number of years. This is the same football field that my son, who is now 44, played youth football on. And I asked some other individuals in the area, and they said that they thought that was the same football field they played football on back in the 1960s.
Alex Reese was playing there.
So, but I'm just saying, it's been there a long time.
Yeah, I
I
thought.
did ask her.
So,
It's a girl, have it here.
I do have something for Mr. Baloo. I think one of the things you asked is how much is the total cost gonna be for the tour?
I'm just thinking more about the maximum cost. What would you?
We don't know that for sure. So what this is gonna be right here, this, we're gonna hire the geotech. He's gonna come in here, they're gonna bore 10 different spots, 10 feet deep, to see what that ground is, and actually from there, they'll start building it up to see what it'll take to be able to put a turf field.
And that's what the design,
This is what the
The
design,
design
this is what
proposal,
this
yes.
pre-construction is.
Yeah,
So if we did this pre-construction and we spent this $100,000, okay, and we sit down and we go through all the bells and whistles and everything that we're interested in putting it together, and we say, okay, here's the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price. You could still say, it's too much money, we're gonna vote against it. We don't walk away with losing $100,000. We actually walk away with some engineered plans. 15 years down the road, we can set those plans down and say, here are the plans that we need to follow to install the turf. However, in 15 years, they did say, talking to some of the contractors, they said, really try and take advantage of this right now, because if this was to expire and you put it out again, they expect an increase anywhere from 11 to 15%.
So, and the.
So, it's hard to say, Donnie, it's hard to say, I can tell after we get this done.
I would just think that a company would have some kind of roundabout idea.
They
of
do.
the maximum cost. Not just, I was wondering, like.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say $1 million, you can say 2 or 3 million, that's not gonna really change my mind on what it means. I realize we're gonna have a big price tag we're gonna have to pay for, and again, like that's not really my biggest concern. I'm more concerned with what's it gonna cost to get there. But one of me for a proposal and put it all together, I was just like, what could this cost us if we were the absolute worst to have to put one in? And I just like to know the cost.
Absolute worst, it's hard to say, but it's just a ballpark figure, it's gonna be about 1.4.
And I appreciate that, thank you.
I was gonna say, Donnie, I know, I asked my son, and he said 4 years ago, Sutherland had to put one down, and but after they did the core test, they actually had to tear up the football field, and they had to go down 40 feet. They had to haul out 40 feet because of the type of rock, and they wanted to make sure they had the right drainage. And they had to put a fence around, where you already have a fence around yours. They had to do the complete fencing, and as Susie had mentioned, they also had to repair their track, because they had a really nice track, and they did damage the track. And theirs was right at, like this, he said this was going down 40 feet, and they had really quality turf and everything, was just under 1.4.
When did they do that?
4 years ago. But he said that they thought that theirs would have been some coming around 1.1, but they had no idea. They had to go down 40 feet.
Are we anticipating that we have that in solar or whatever?
Yes. We really don't know, I mean, I would just be guessing. The pre-construction, one of the advantages that we have that'll be coming out is, you know, we've been proactive, already did a topographic survey. So we know basically where the drainage system is. We do have a fenced area. We have a concrete border around the football field already where the turf is going to be anchored to. So those kind of things, you know, when they put this together, they're thinking we're going to put a boundary, concrete boundary, we have to put the fence in. And we're going to go ahead and do a topographic survey. Well, luckily for us, we've got all those three things.
do we have other questions? I mean, these are all valuable questions. It's really good to get this out, so we, you know, I really want to know what everyone thinks.
Okay, I was concerned about the students, the staff. I asked 6 students that graduated a year ago and they play soccer. 3 of them were, they got a scholarship from TVCC to play soccer. When I got in contact with them, I called them and they were like, okay, we play 6 games this year. 3 of them were turf. And they were used to being playing in that, whatever you call it, in that field. So it was hard for them to get adjust because the ball runs faster. Okay, when I was talking to one of them, the family, mom and dad, said that some of the parents can't drive, Salem, Portland, whatever is the playoffs, and it would be really nice to be here and watch their kids play. One of the kids said, I don't like it because I like to get dirty and I like grass in the cleats. And the other one said, maybe not because the cleats get hot, but knowing that with the turf, they will be able to practice year round so they can have more time, they can get a good team together. He's like, I think it will be a good thing. I talked to this kid in middle school. He's played soccer out of the school and everything, but he's planning to play on high school, and he said that will be good. He said he never played on turf before, but he's like, oh, I'm excited, that will be great, because I will be able to play grass and turf and know how to play the ball in both. Out of 21 people that I asked for said no. One of them was because they thought they would have to buy different cleats because it's a really expensive project. One, I was surprised that he said, I think it's the best investment that the school could do. And he graduated 3 years ago. When I asked some of the staff, they were like, okay, my sort of people played football before and they hurt their knees because the turf was really hard. But he also commented, okay, now we have different type of turf and the surface is different, so I'm okay with it. 16 yes, 1 maybe, 4 no, out of 21 people. And I've taught people that are playing now, college right now, people that are playing right now, and people that are in middle school. So, like I said, the only concern was the students. So even if we spend $1, $3 million, if the kids want that, I'm totally okay with it. So,
Thanks for doing the work there.
yeah.
Mayor Beth, you also talked to some students.
Yes, I did. I talked to quite a few students. A couple of the students were asking, now, this is a big investment, but what about the rest of the sports facilities, the tennis courts, the track? Like, they need some attention is what, I have not set foot to look at it. So, then it was at a wrestling event. So they also said, our wrestling room is so small and there's so much of us. So forward thinking, planning as this project has taken is what it's gonna take, that vision. But for now, we're here talking about the turf. The students that were opposed to it were talking about how hard it is and turf burn. And I said, well, the district would buy tape as you insured. And they said, well, they have some sleeves too. And I said, oh, I'm sure they'll think of that too. And they talked about cleats, having 2 different cleats, and that wouldn't be mandatory. And more than anything, a couple of them said, well, is it going to be the soft turf or the hard, rough turf? And I said, I'm sure we would do the better one. We're not going to cut it short and go cheap, right?
Exactly.
I'm just thinking.
It has to be safe for the kids.
Yep.
Well, and I think the design process and some of those questions, like, if and when this is approved, I think that would be probably the time to bring in kids to kind of hear some of that feedback, maybe have some say in the actual design, right? The logos, colors, all that stuff, and some of those same things you're talking about. So I feel like that's more of an appropriate time to have those conversations, get their feedback on those. So yeah, no, I think you guys are doing that.
And then, so I think more than anything, the kids, honestly, from what I gather, is they're worried about getting hurt, the scrapes, the burns. And so if that could be mitigated, I'm sure, there was kids that were saying, yeah, let's do it, that would be so nice. Like, that comes with, having that feeling better about your school, like pride in your school, pride in your district, feeling that success, because now you're prepared for what's to come. So I think overall, if we were able to
get everything wrapped up as to the concerns with the scrapes and the burns, then I think more students would be on board.
And I think, I mean, turf burn, I mean, it is not fun,
No.
right? And the problem is with turf burn is like, it never heals because then you keep doing it. And that's something that, you know, I've played on a lot of turf. And it is, sometimes you just gotta, you know, you have to wear your long sleeves. And kids, it's weird, like, some people just get it more than others. Just, it's how they tackle and go. And then we provide them tape, but also it's like, hey, if turf burn is what you get all the time, you might want to start wearing longer sleeves. You might want to wear, because it's really your knees and your elbows and right in here, and helping them with that process. But it is not fun, but it is, I mean, it's turf burn. It sucks.
Yeah, and you know, being at a wrestling event, and I'm like, well, you get mat burn, you know, your forehead, your cheek, your chin,
Yeah.
your,
Basketball
you know,
is full
it's
of
still
burn,
the
yeah.
same, yeah, and then with diseases too, but. And I'm like, how can you be scared of one and the other, like, but.
Megan, did you have any questions?
No, I had a brief chat with 7 middle schoolers today because they all descended on my house after Morningfall. But they are soccer players, they're football players. Not a single one of them hesitated when I asked, what are your thoughts? They were like, do it. And I have kids that play football. And I know, like, one of the things that they absolutely hate on our current field is that it's uneven and they trip. And I actually watched my uncle, who was a ref. He did this really nice tuck and roll in the middle of the game as he was reffing, got right back up, dislocated his knee. You know, that not having that would be nice. And then as a parent also that has to watch white football pants, I'm really excited because they will stay white.
Yeah.
Susan, do you have any other questions? Okay. Any other questions? Do we have any questions from our gallery?
Any comments, questions?
I guess I have one quick comment, and I talked to somebody about it, and like, they were flying into somewhere, I don't even remember where it was, but they said from the airplane, the only thing you could see is the bright, vibrant, artificial turf fields. And that it just brings a sense of, I guess, pride, I guess, like you said, that's what you see when you come to town, if you're flying over or whatever, that's what really sticks out. So that was one comment that kind of stuck out to me.
You used to see the blue track when you flew in.
You could do a blue field.
Keep pushing.
Now you can have the pool you want to be.
And the pool.
Well, and I think it is kind of funny, my nephew goes to school where your nephew goes in Hawaii High School. And he's like, why are you guys even debating this? Like, you know, that's all they do over there. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting comment too.
I guess the irony of this is I sat in this same room 6-7 years ago while a group of student athletes came in and pleaded for soccer to become a sport here in Nissa. Tonight just seems like the culmination of that same conversation from 7 years ago. They will have a place for their own. They will be recognized as, you know, a true sport in Nissa. So it just seems like tonight's just the end result of what I sat through 7 years ago.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So, technology has come a long ways since I played. And you did have to get special cleats, because it was like this carpet. And now you can actually wear your regular cleats. The rug burns aren't as bad as back then, especially with the rubber beads and everything. It minimizes that. Rory, he played in Homedale and Gannett, and he said that he loved it. It felt weird, but he loved it. Do you have anything to say about that? No.
It is a faster, different game, and it is, and it's more consistent, and you're out there like, I'm fast, right? It is a whole different experience, and the technology has come pretty far. I remember in college, we had to go down to OSU to play on their turf. It was basically like the old AstroTurf on cement, and but from then till now, it is vastly different. It is softer. They do think about that impact. That's where the G-Max comes in. It's a whole different ballgame.
Just for it, the first artificial field was put in 1966, and so they say they basically have three stages of synthetic fields now, and now they're into the third stage, and they said it's so much safer and shock absorbent than the first one. And some of them were just, I don't know, some of you can remember Horizon Christian was just like playing on a carpet. It was just like playing on air. The technology, as James said, has come a long way.
And it's my understanding that even if it's raining, they can still hold the games.
Yeah, we could have a football game drenched, pouring down, and you know, it's a grass field, soccer wouldn't be able to follow, but a soccer game would be able to follow on a turf field.
Are there any other comments, questions? This is a special meeting, so we can make motions. We have heard a lot of comments. We've gotten our questions answered. And we've gotten comments from different students. And this particular motion is just on the design proposal.
Yes.
Which the design proposal that you're bringing forward to us and that the committee selected is for $110,000.
That's
Is that
correct,
correct?
yeah.
And I've forgotten the name of the company.
The Wright brothers.
The Wright Brothers, which is a local company. So out of Eagle?
Yep.
Out of Eagle. Okay. That being said,
How long? If they were to start the day after,
No, I mean to get the study done.
oh, they'll be here tomorrow to start the process. They will actually start making phone calls and starting the whole design process tomorrow, as soon as we notify that they.
because we'd like to get this done so we can play football on it and soccer on it this fall.
Are we playing too?
That can be a small.
Oh, it's
No.
Yeah,
It would be a really terrible.
It would be nice.
So instead of staff versus students, it's board members versus students.
How's that?
Got
That'd be
it.
nice.
We got a big handicap.
Yeah.
Start.
10-point lead, there you
Oh,
go.
no.
I can roll. Supposed to do that.
Since we have heard all of this, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion, go ahead and present the Wright Brothers proposal for $110,000 in design areas.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Donnie and seconded by Maribel to accept the Wright Brothers design proposal for $110,000. All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
That being said, I want to thank the board members and our company here and our administrators for all that it does. Thank Mr. Ryan.
Yeah.
And that being said, this meeting is now adjourned.